Cheryl Fields, Director of Marketing, Communications, and Engagement at Black Public Media, and I am a Black woman with mixed gray hair. Gray and dark brown. I wear it in dreadlocks. I'm wearing a gray sweater and a multicolored dress, and I'm talking to you from the traditional lands of the Monacan and Manahoac people of what we now know as Northern Virginia, in a suburb of Washington, D.C. It is my delight to be here with you today with these two incredible artists, Rosalind LeBlanc and Tom Hurwitz. Roz is a dancer, choreographer, educator, and chair of the dance department at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. And Tom is one of our nation's most honored documentary cinematographers. Their film, Can You Bring It? Bill T. Jones and D-Man in the Waters, was recently named a Peabody Award winner in the category of arts. The film was selected by unanimous decision and is one of only 34 winners out of a pool of more than 1,100 entries. Before we start a conversation about this film, I want to go ahead and let you check out the trailer of the film, and then we'll come back. So, Ebony, go ahead and roll the trailer.
This is not a balletic piece. It's lyrical, but it's athletic. D-Man in the Waters is a piece by Bill T. Jones. It is considered Jones's most successful dance.
For D-Man in the Waters, Bill T. Jones.
All his movements always had some sort of meaning or task to them, and any emotion that came out, it came out of the movement.
The work was play. The play was work. The work was about changing perception.
Arnie and I were a couple. We wanted to make a community who had a mission and a direction.
That community thing changed radically when all of a sudden it was, how do we save ourselves?
You know, I remember half my phone book had died.
Recently, Arnie Zane learned he has AIDS.
Did I even see him once cry with frustration because he had to realize that he was not going to beat it? What is D-Man? Is it alive now? Is it a cautionary tale? Is it one of inspiration?
What is our AIDS right now? What are we going through? Your generation isn't doing it. So the 9 of you are going to do it. And you're going to do it each night on that stage.
What do they share that is so big that you need a piece like this to move it?
Do you dare to let the stakes really be high? No matter what happens, don't give up.
We were hurting, but our work was a way that we kept going. Let me see your hands, huh? It's I give up or I have nothing to fear. I love you. I love you. Yeah.
So if you have not already seen this film, I highly recommend that you watch it as soon as you are done with this conversation or sometime over this Memorial Day weekend. Now, Roz and Tom, I know we've been doing this for nearly a month now, but I have to start by saying one more time, congratulations! This just does not get old for me. I'm so excited for the two of you. I'm going to ask you some questions, but first I'd like you to just describe yourselves for our audience so that people who are vision impaired can get an idea of what you are like.
Sure. Hi. It's such a joy to be here. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm Roz LeBlanc, and I am a Black woman with curly hair. I'm wearing a black shirt, and I'm sitting in my office at LMU, which is on the unceded lands of the Gabrielino Tongva Nation.
And I'm Tom Hurwitz. I'm an older white man with white hair and a mustache and a gray shirt. I'm sitting in my house, and my house is on Lenape land in what is called the island of Manhattan.
All right. Well, so I'm not going to ask you the question of how does it feel to be a Peabody winner, but I did want to ask you whether or not it came as a surprise to you to get this award, or did you at the end of putting the film together and putting it out there, you had an idea that it might actually have this kind of impact?
Who wants to tap that?
Who wants to take that one on?
Well, when
go for it, Tom.
Okay, when Roz came to me with the idea of a small film, and we did our first set of shooting, it was clear to me that we had a real feature documentary here, and that it was about something bigger than I don't want to say just, but something bigger than the creation of a dance, of a ballet. That it was really about something kind of essential in the human experience, which is the making of art and the power of art to resurrect us, to give us new life. It was just clear from the experience of the people who had made it originally and were part of it originally.
And go ahead. Well, what I was going to say, I'm glad that you said that, because as I was thinking about this conversation and thinking about what my expectations were going into the film for the first time, I was blown away by how layered it was and how much there was to it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how did Roz have the courage to take on all of this in her first feature-length documentary? Go ahead, Tom.
No, Roz had never produced a film before, Roz can tell you. And Roz learned the job of motion picture producer faster than any human being on earth, besides herself.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Well, I think that one of the things, so to answer your first question, the possibility of a Peabody, no, that was really a shock and just brought us to our knees in such a humble way because of everything the Peabody stands for, and that excellence of storytelling. But the courage to tell this story, I mean, one of the things is, and this is greater than me, is that the story of D-Man in the Waters, and what's important to also kind of reveal here, is that there are so many complex, beautiful, powerful stories around this film, around the making of this film, around the legacy of the making of this dance, the legacy of this dance that we didn't actually tell. That really, in a way, maybe rightfully so, kind of stay in this kind of sanctuary that is the dance, and inside of Bill's creative sanctuary. But what I think was always clear to me is that these stories were like no other. I mean, I've been in many dances and many creative processes and learned many repertory pieces. And there was just never a dance that had a story like this one, that had a history like this one, and that evoked, in the process of learning it, it continually evoked from generation to generation. It taps something in the human, and in their own personal journey that, in my opinion, no other dance can really do. So the story told itself. I think we just found one of those threads that made sense for Can You Bring It in this particular narrative. But the dance itself is a powerful force in the world.
Well, and talk a little bit about that notion of Can You Bring It? Because I know it is spoken in the film. And I wondered, did you have that before you started making the film, or did it just bubble up because it was such a powerful statement and really kind of was the evocation that Bill intended for the dancers to, like, can you bring it? You did the same thing with your students with it. And I just wonder, how did you settle on making that the title of the dance? And also, you didn't put a question mark behind it. You put a K in and then D-Man in the Water. So I wondered about that.
I'll start this just to talk about Bill as a choreographer and his phrase and saying that at the moment, but then I'll hand it over to Tom in terms of how it ended up the title of the film.
Great.
The notion of bringing it, I mean, it's a very, I guess, colloquialism in the Black American experience that really, it's such a complex idea, of, he talks about it in the film, bringing the God into the room. It's really kind of an invocation and an evocation of the spirit. Bring it. It's also about bringing the self fully, which is really, in that moment, what he's talking about with those students, is, can you bring your consummate self, like all of you, to this? That goes beyond the trained dancer, who's looking at themselves in the mirror, but like, go deeper than that, go broader than that, And so that was what Bill meant. And he has said that wasn't the first time he said that, as a dancer, as a former dancer of his, that was the challenge he was always throwing down to us. No, you got to bring it. No, that's not enough, and also that's what he models as a performer. Because Bill, in addition to being one of our, great choreographers of our time, is also one of the great performers of our time. And, there are whole generations of people now who haven't had a chance to see him perform live, but it's also speaking to his own performance practice. But then how it became the title of the film.
Let me just add one thing, because there's something special about D-Man in the Waters, about the dance that the film, that speaks through the film. And that is that you really can't do this well without bringing it, in the sense that Ross has used that word. This particular ballet requires that the people who dance it bring it. It is so hard, and it involves so much of themselves that they have to bring their entire selves. And it is what Roz says to them as they prepare to do to the young students, as they prepare to do the dance themselves on the very last day of rehearsal.
Right.
Now, how did that become our title? We had lots of titles, as one does in a documentary, and you really want the title to be kind of somehow essential to the film.
Right.
But periodically in the cutting room, my wife, Margaret Klenk, who's an extraordinary person and character, would come in, and we would, the editor, Ann Collins, and I would screen the film up to that point for her. And it was the point at which we really had to come up with a title. And we finished looking at the film, and she looked around and she said, "Can you bring it?" That's the name of the film. And it was. It was the name of the film. And so we immediately passed it by Roz, who said, "That's the name of the film." And that's how we came up with the name of the film.
I love it. I love it. It really is.
And I knew it immediately, and my wife Margaret was the one who came.
Well, so Tom, I had another question for you, because I remember you saying something about growing up. Your mother was a dancer, is that correct?
Both Roz's mother and my mother were modern dancers.
Right. Okay.
Both Roz's mother and my mother were choreographers, and both Roz's mother and my mother were dance educators.
And did they know each other?
Yes, not well. They knew,
Okay.
they knew each other. Yes. My mother spent the last 30 years of her life in London as head of a really important dance teaching institution there. So, in their retirement, in their non-dancing, part of their lives, they were in very different places.
Right. So, well, I asked that question because the film is shot beautifully. The dance scenes are actually shot wonderfully, and I wondered how growing up with a mother who was a part of this world influenced sort of the creative decisions that you made about how you shot the rehearsals, how you shot the performances. I love the scenes where you're on the stage behind the curtain and filming what's happening behind the curtain. So talk a little bit about that process and how your experience informed those choices.
Well, that was one of the challenges that Roz and I came to, and Roz was the one who selected the sections of the dance that we had to film, because she knew it so well. It was in her very DNA. The idea was that this was a story of the making of this dance, and only partly about the performing of this dance. So we weren't necessarily always filming performance, although we did, but we also had to film the experience of being in the dance, of being a dancer in the dance. So I had to develop a kind of cinematography in which the camera was one of the dancers, at the same time as showing the movement, and so that you could see what movement was choreographed. The camera was part of the movement at the same time. So that was tricky. It took us a while to work out how to do that, but that was our challenge, and that's what we did.
And then Roz, I wonder, because I'm a former journalist, and I know that the best interviews always come when you have a person who trusts you, and I think for you, certainly I'm sure it was an advantage to have been a part of the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane dance company, but I wondered how this was a particularly important dance, documenting the feelings, the emotions, the challenges of a really difficult time in our nation's history, and particularly in the history of the dance world and the performing world. So I wondered, how hard was it for you to get folks who were in the company at that time to talk about what they went through? It's very emotional. So I just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, that kind of goes back to how this entire project started, because I knew that original cast that's in the film. There's one additional person who isn't in the film, who's also part of that cast that I haven't actually ever met. But so I was, and some of them I actually performed the dance with. So, you know, we were friends. And I was in the process, I had been going out, the company was sending me out to various colleges to restage the first part of the dance. This was like in the early 2000s. And I continually came up upon the same challenge, which was at the end of these processes, you know, everything was in place, but still the spirit of D-Man in the Waters wasn't in the room. And I was really searching for how to unlock that spirit. And so I reached out to the original group via email. And I said, I want to kind of, you know, puff up my PowerPoint, basically. I mean, that's how elemental this started. And I would love to hear stories like your memories of this time, because I had Bill's book. I had talked to Bill about it. You know, I had everything from his point of view. And it was really an opening of a floodgate with these long emails that came, you know, scrolling through of memories, and they were going back and forth. No, you created that. No, I remember when you did this. And I remember Damien sitting on the floor when he wasn't able to, when he was too sick to dance, you know, and that was so powerful. It also felt like they haven't really told this story. I mean, they know it, they share these memories, but to actually, as a group, tell someone else this is what that time was like. And that was also a moment where I felt like this story needs to be told. And so my original thought was I would write a book. And it was actually Greg Hubbard, one of the dancers, who said, to really capture this story, it needs to be a film, because so much of what we're saying is embedded in the movement. And so it was like, okay, I don't know how to make a film, but that's a great idea. Let me try to find a producer who could possibly take on this film.
And how then did you choose Tom? Did you choose him, or he found you, or how did this work? Oh, you go ahead.
Tom and I go way back. So Tom was the DP and cinematographer for Still Here.
Okay.
And Bill T. Jones's evening length piece about living with life-threatening illness.
Right.
And so that was 94, 95.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for Minneapolis PBS.
Mm-hmm.
Tom?
Yes.
And so Tom was kind of embedded with the company for about 3 or 4 weeks. While we kind of made this made-for-television version of Still Here. And so cut to 20 years later, that I reached out to him out of the blue and just said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I was in Still Here, but I have this great idea for a film. Right now I'm producing it because I haven't found anybody else to, but I would love to talk to you about it. And he wrote back and said, yeah, I'd love to hear about it. So that was...
I had followed Roz's career the entire time.
Oh, and, wow.
Of course I remembered her. And so it was a no-brainer. I mean, it just... And we just thought we'd shoot some interviews. And then at the end of that set of interviews, it was so clear that this was a story that was so much bigger, than just one story of one Malay.
Right,
and that's what people say, that the best audience comment, and I've now heard it over and over again, is that this isn't just a dance film. This is a film about everything. And that's the way it presented itself, really, from the very beginning.
Yeah, it really is it's just got so much meat to it. And I've watched it like 4 times and I still want to watch it again. So, it is a tribute to both of you that has happened. And I'm curious, because I have so many other questions. I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm going to keep talking. Unless something shows up here, I hope our audience is as riveted to this as I am to this film. But Roz, I wondered, how difficult was it to get your 21st century students who were not likely around during the AIDS epidemic to fully understand, embrace? You said that you were asking for help from members of the original company to kind of help you beef up your deck. Talk a little bit more about how that finally broke through, because it does seem like at the end of the film, as you're seeing the performance, that they kind of got it. But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that is hidden in this, I think in the film you get a sense of process, you get a sense of time, but there's also another time frame here, which is the 9 years from conception to completion. And over those 9 years, it was a journey for me as well. And I think that from the beginning, what spurred the film was this idea that if they knew more of the history, that the dance would come alive more.
Got it.
And that was only true to a fraction of an extent, because history is intellectual, conceptual, theoretical, but what does it take to embody it? And that was the piece that was missing. I think that what I learned over that journey was that when you are restaging a dance, and this is the beauty of dance, is that it's never a historical artifact, right? It is real. It is enlivened by contemporary players in the contemporary moment. And so what it takes to embody it is to connect to the present. It's to connect to put everything in relationship. That was part of the original dance. The dance was in relationship to the people performing it, to the creator making it, to the world in which it's happening. But then when you restage it, you have to recreate those relationships again. The people who are dancing it right now, the world that is happening right now. And that's informed by the historical imperative. So that was, so you kind of see a little bit of that arc in the film, and perhaps is a source of my frustration at times in the film. When I get frustrated, is that I'm searching too, like, what do we need to do to truly embody and connect to this movement, to this dance, and match the imperative that it's calling for. I always want to say to the students who are now alums and who I cannot praise enough for just being, each and every one of them, successful professional people in the world. So it's amazing their successes. But one of the things I always want to call attention to is that they were so brave in learning publicly, daring to be vulnerable, to be wrong, to be corrected, to fall out of things, to not know, to be silent, right? All of those things that they are so brave and vulnerable in doing and being. And nowadays, that's, with social media and cancel culture, it is such a testament to their bravery that they were willing to do that. And so, yeah, it's an eternal question. Like, how do you get someone who has not lived through an era to then connect to the spirit, the imperatives, the desperation, the need, of that previous time? I think it's an ongoing question that doesn't have an easy answer.
So we're running out of time here. I guess the last question I want to ask you two is, we're in a time now where documentary films are becoming, the audience for them seems to be growing and growing. And for documentary filmmakers, sometimes you make a film thinking of it being on the big screen. And this particular film, as a documentary, of course, in Afropop Digital Shorts, had a life in the film festival circuit, and it now has had this life on public television. I'm curious, what was it like for you after working on the film all this time, and having it released in theaters and then seeing it on the small screen? Was it different? Was it a different experience seeing your work on the small screen, knowing that its reach was much larger than you could have in any one theater?
Tom, you want to take that question first?
Yeah, sure. The format really, as long as people can see into it, as long as they're not looking on their phone and they're looking on a screen that covers a good part of their vision, I'm happy. As the visual creator, I'm happy that they're seeing it and that they can see into the images. It's always nice to see it with a large bunch of people. Whenever I've been there in screenings, and now in it with audiences, now it's been lots of times, dozens and dozens. It's always joyful. I love to be with a lot of people seeing this. It hits lots of emotions, but it's perfectly fine. I'm perfectly happy for people to see it at home. It feels great. I was just going to say that the thing about this film, the thing about any creation, any creative art, is that it ties itself to a specific time and it ties itself to eternity.
Right.
And if you're performing it, and you can tie it to the place in yourself that connects with the eternity, which is what Roz helps those students do and forces them to do, then they bring it. They bring it themselves out of their own life and their own experience. And the history is just information. And I think that's what Bill says, and that's his bringing the God into the room, and that's the eternal piece.
Roz, you want to add anything?
No, I love that. The eternal. Yes, that says it. Thank you.
Well, we are just about out of time here. I want to invite all of our viewers to go to blackpublicmedia.com. You can watch the film on our platform. You can watch it on World Channel. You can watch it lots of places online. Just search for Can You Bring It, Bill T. Jones and D-Man in the Waters. We are happy to also encourage you to share this conversation with your friends and watch it again. And Roz and Tom, thank you so very much. We are thrilled for you. We look forward to hearing your experiences after receiving this Peabody Award, and look forward to more films to come out of the two of you. Who knows? Maybe there are some sequels.
You said it.
There you go. So we're gonna can you bring it? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank
you,
so
Cheryl, and thank you to Black Public Media. Truly an honor.
It's our pleasure. And for anyone who's looking to see more films like this wonderful one, Afropop Season 16 is now available, and you can watch that from the blackpublicmedia.org website. And we also have a series of shorts called Afropop Digital Shorts. If you don't have a lot of time, you just want to see some really wonderful films from around the African diaspora, please go ahead and check that out as well at blackpublicmedia.org. All right. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Thank you so much.